For decades, Mel Gibson looked like the kind of star Hollywood could never lose. He had the face of an action hero, the intensity of a dramatic actor, the ambition of a filmmaker, and by the 1990s, he had something even more powerful than fame: control. He could choose the movies. He could direct them. He could walk into a studio and command enormous attention. But then the image began to collapse. The headlines changed. The admiration turned into controversy. And the man who had once seemed untouchable suddenly found himself outside the Hollywood establishment he had conquered. What happened next wasn't a simple comeback story. It was messier, more uncomfortable, and far more human. The star from Australia, Mel Gibson, was born in New York in 1956, but his family moved to Australia when he was young. That country became the place where his acting career began. He studied at the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney and started working in Australian productions. Then came a character that would change everything: Max Rokitansky. In 1979, Gibson starred in Mad Max. The movie was made on a modest budget, but its impact was enormous. Gibson played Max as a man slowly being consumed by a violent world. He wasn't polished. He wasn't invincible. He was raw, and audiences noticed. The face of a new action hero, Mad Max 2, expanded Gibson's international reputation. Suddenly, Hollywood wanted him. But Gibson wasn't simply another imported action star. There was something different about him. He could be intimidating one moment and unexpectedly funny the next. That combination became his signature. Then came Lethal Weapon. As Martin Riggs, Gibson created another unforgettable character. Riggs was reckless, damaged, funny, and dangerous. The chemistry between Gibson and Danny Glover turned the movie into a major franchise. Gibson had arrived, but he wasn't satisfied with simply being an actor. He wanted to control the story. When the actor became the filmmaker, Gibson eventually moved behind the camera. His early directing work showed that he had ambitions beyond acting. Then came Braveheart. Released in 1995, the epic historical drama became a cultural phenomenon. Gibson directed the film and starred as William Wallace. The movie earned multiple Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Suddenly, the man who had become famous for playing action heroes was also one of Hollywood's most powerful filmmakers. He had reached a level few actors ever achieve. And for a while, it seemed like nothing could stop him. The project Hollywood didn't expect. Then Gibson took an even bigger risk. The Passion of the Christ, the 2004 film, focused on the final hours of Jesus Christ. It was independently financed and produced outside the traditional Hollywood system. The movie became a massive commercial success, but it was also controversial. Debates surrounded its extreme violence, theological interpretation, and accusations that aspects of the film could contribute to anti-Semitic attitudes. Gibson defended the project. Regardless of the controversy, one thing was undeniable: he had demonstrated extraordinary power as a filmmaker. But privately, his life was becoming increasingly complicated. The night that changed his career, in 2006, Gibson was arrested in California for driving under the influence. During the incident, he made anti-Semitic remarks that were widely reported. The reaction was immediate and devastating. Gibson apologized, but apologies couldn't simply erase what had happened. The image of the fearless Hollywood star had changed. Studios became cautious. The press followed his every move, and the man who had once been celebrated as one of Hollywood's most powerful figures suddenly became a symbol of controversy. For Gibson, the fall had begun when private life became public. Years later, another controversy pushed him even further from the Hollywood mainstream. In 2010, recordings of conversations involving Gibson and his former partner, Oksana Grigorieva, became public. The recordings triggered widespread condemnation. Legal disputes followed. The The story dominated entertainment news. At that point, Gibson's career had reached a dangerous place. The question was no longer whether he was talented. Everyone already knew he was talented. The question was whether Hollywood could trust him again. The years in the wilderness. The offers changed. Gibson still worked, but not at the level he had once enjoyed. He appeared in smaller productions. He took supporting roles. He remained visible without being central. For a man who had once been one of Hollywood's biggest stars, this was a dramatic change. The spotlight was still there, but it wasn't shining on him in the same way. And perhaps that period forced Gibson to confront something most celebrities never have to face. What happens when the world stops applauding? The door opens again. Then came Hacksaw Ridge. In 2016, Gibson returned to directing with the World War II drama about Desmond Doss. The response was significant. The film received 6 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director. Gibson himself was nominated for Best Director. It was an extraordinary moment. The filmmaker Hollywood had largely pushed aside was suddenly being recognized by the same institution that had once celebrated him. But this wasn't a reset button. His past hadn't disappeared. Instead, it was something more complicated. A professional comeback without a complete erasure of what had happened before. Hollywood's strange memory. Hollywood has a complicated relationship with redemption. It can remember your worst moment forever, but it can also remember what you can do. Gibson's talent remained. His directing ability remained. His screen presence remained. And eventually, filmmakers began working with him again. He appeared in major productions. He took on supporting roles. He became part of younger franchises. The industry that had once turned away from him slowly began opening its doors again. But a comeback isn't forgetting. This is where Gibson's story becomes more complicated. A comeback doesn't mean the past disappears. It doesn't mean controversial words were never spoken. It doesn't mean painful events never happened. And it doesn't mean everyone has to forgive. But careers are rarely as simple as heroes and villains. People can make terrible mistakes. They can face consequences. They can change. And audiences can still disagree about whether that change is enough. Gibson's career exists inside that uncomfortable space. The man behind the characters. There is another reason Gibson remains fascinating. His most famous characters were often men fighting against overwhelming forces. Max fighting a brutal world. Martin Riggs fighting his own emotional demons. William Wallace fighting an empire. Even his later directing work often focused on individuals pushed to their limits. Perhaps audiences responded because Gibson understood intensity. He understood anger. He understood survival. But real life doesn't provide a screenplay. There are no guaranteed happy endings. No perfect redemption arcs. Only choices. And consequences. What remains today, Mel Gibson's legacy, is impossible to summarize in one sentence. He is an Oscar-winning filmmaker, a major action star, the face of iconic franchises, and one of Hollywood's most controversial figures. His career contains extraordinary achievements. It also contains moments that caused enormous damage. Both are part of the record. Neither can simply be erased. And perhaps that is exactly what makes his story worth telling. For decades, Mel Gibson seemed to have mastered Hollywood. Then he lost control of the image. The applause became criticism. The invitations became silence. And the star who once seemed permanent became uncertain. But he kept working. He returned to directing. He found new opportunities. And slowly, he rebuilt a career that many people thought was finished. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to prove that a career can survive a collapse. Maybe the real lesson isn't that Mel Gibson was forgiven. Maybe the lesson is that Hollywood rarely works in absolutes. People fall. People return. Audiences change their minds. Studios change theirs. And time can transform the way a career is remembered. Mel Gibson's story remains unfinished. Perhaps that's what makes it so compelling. Because the final chapter of a complicated life can't always be written while the person is still living it. He was once one of Hollywood's kings. Then he became one of its most controversial figures. And when many people thought his career was finished, he found a way back. But the most important question isn't whether Mel Gibson returned. It's what he learned from the fall. Because fame can disappear, money can disappear, power can disappear, but the choices a person makes afterward, those become part of the legacy. Mel Gibson spent decades building a Hollywood empire. Then he spent years discovering how fragile that empire really was. And perhaps his greatest story isn't about becoming a star, it's about discovering what remains. After the spotlight goes dark,